Hey everyone, welcome to Chat B2B, the podcast that gives you a front row seat to AI in B2B marketing. I'm your host, Andrew Rao, co-CEO of Intercept, and today we've got Dylan Fedy with us. He's the Director of Marketing and Customer Insight at Procom. And if you're not familiar with Procom is a multi-billion-dollar IT staffing firm supporting some of the largest organizations across North America. And Dylan has had the opportunity to lead several of their AI initiatives, from sales training agents to voice-enabled web experiences to AI-powered workflow automations. So in this episode, we focus on some very practical use cases for AI. Dylan shares what has worked, what have they learned along the way that you can take back to your organization. This is Chat B2B. Let's get into it. There's a lot of noise and updates around AI right now. Are we in an AI bubble? What is the latest models and capabilities? When you think about practical AI from your vantage point, what does that really mean? And I'll just caveat this with, Dylan, you're obviously you are an avid AI person. You are listening to, a lot of the podcasts I'm listening to, and probably others as well. So you've got a really, informed vantage point. So I don't know, practical AI. What does that mean to you? What does that mean when you think about it? Also at Procom.
Yeah. So I think practical AI is one of those phrases that keeps evolving. Um,
Yep.
what's practical changes so quickly in this space. Like every few weeks, new models, new tools go from basically a magic trick to an everyday tool.
Yeah.
So for me, like practical AI, it's really just useful AI. The kind of a tool that helps real people do real work.
Yeah.
And at Procom, that kind of looks different depending on where you sit. So our tech teams use it to make our client portal smarter and smoother. Recruiters use it to give job candidates faster, better feedback. And in marketing, we're using it all the time to help write and research and refine our messaging and our collateral.
Yes.
So basically, I'd say like the rule of thumb is basically if it saves time, if it improves accuracy, if it reduces friction for someone on our team or for a client, then it's practical. And
Yep.
the fun part, this space is really exciting. You talked about listening to the podcast and trying to keep up, and it
Yeah.
really is fun to try and keep up with this stuff. It's just how quickly more and more of this is becoming practical. So
Yeah.
every week, something that felt totally experimental, suddenly becomes literally indispensable.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what makes this stuff exciting. And we're learning and tinkering and turning new tools into new habits all the time
I
here.
I I I
Um,
I love that. And
now,
you've got multiple layers, right? Like you said, the tech team, the HR team with the job candidates, marketing. So it's you've integrated it into a few obviously lines of business at Procom.
we have for sure. Yeah. I'm happy to tell you about a bit more about that. We treat it less like a program. It's less like a project and more like a
Yeah.
set of tools that we're adding, to the toolbox that we're building right into the way that our business runs. So I go back to the beginning. So it started with something that we call Guerrilla Works, which is
Okay.
essentially a tech startup, if you will, that grew out of our own internal technology team here at Procom. This is a team that's been building tech for Procom, for our use and for our clients' use for years and years.
Yeah.
It focused on making tools that make our lives better and make our things work faster, smoother, easier. And what we learned is that this tech was actually really good, and that
Mm.
staffing firms wanted to get their hands on it too. And so um, we really, to help us build better tools faster, the decision was made to create the Guerrilla Works organization, and that is why we have things today like Procom. It's still Guerrilla Works' largest client, and we've got some products that have come out of there that we're using that are AI-based products now. Guerrilla Resume is one that we use for automating resume formatting. We've got something we call
Okay.
Guerrilla Vision for compliance and onboarding. It's basically scanning and making sense of all kinds of onboarding documents. And then Guerrilla GPT is our sort of internal portal where anyone at Procom can use AI safely, which is kind of important. So it's essentially a walled off
course.
instance of ChatGPT, right, where we're doing all the things, the writing, the analysis, the research that you'd expect that most of your listeners are probably doing with ChatGPT. And so now with those tools, like they're handling tens of thousands of tasks every month
Wow.
for us. So we're saving a ton of manual effort and time. And in marketing, it's basically become a daily thought partner, honestly, and
Okay.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine work life without it now.
Yeah.
And some more recent examples that I hope we get a chance to go into in some more detail is a pretty cool AI powered sales simulation that we've built and
Yes.
our sales team is using. And then there's another project that I think is exciting. We're building voice agents to sort of guide website visitors to the right people or resources. But I think it's important to say that it's not just the tools. Everyone gets excited about the tools, but it's also a mindset shift
Yes.
that I think is critical. Once people can see what AI can do, then they start thinking differently about their own work, and that's when the real sort of traction takes hold. So anyway, we think about it, less about what AI can do, and more about what it makes us capable of.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love that you're obviously still maintaining that like people first, but taking an AI forward approach to it, which I think is key. I think it's easy to, maybe get a little bit, kind of over your skis a little bit on like, hey, let's make it all AI for the sake of AI. And we kind of lose sight of like, wait, what are we solving a problem? Are we making our lives any easier, right? Or is this like a bit of a marketing play? But I want to go back to the Guerrilla Works. So is Guerrilla Works in an internal team or an organization, or it's a strategic affiliate that you guys have a partnership?
yeah, the precursor was the internal team, and they've grown out of the organization and now sell to other staffing firms. So yeah, they're
Oh, I see.
yeah.
I so why I picked up on that one is Innovator's Dilemma has been a book that's been around for decades, and I think they just did a sort of recycle of it, which interestingly enough, they didn't change a single word of the book because they're like it's the Innovator's Dilemma is even more true today than it was back like maybe 10 years ago when it was originally authored, and it talked about having a dedicated team focused on innovation. So like you've got a team that's doing the core day-to-day stuff and that still needs to happen. But unless you have a team that's dedicated to innovation, it's hard to innovate, right? And so it's hard to find sort of the next wave of new workflows and new capabilities and new offerings. So it sounds like Procom already adopted that a long time ago, and that sounds like one of the reasons why you've been able to scale, because when you said tens of thousands of tasks every month, that's
Yeah.
very different than a lot of organizations because you figured out a way to embed AI into the operations at scale. That's really fascinating
Yeah, and
to
so
me.
we're fortunate that I guess the CEO had the foresight some many years ago to invest in our own technology and innovation. So who could have seen that now those tools and those investments would pay off in the way they have, and giving us the ability to move so much faster than some of our competitors, to have the data, and to have the tool and the scaffolding onto
Yeah.
which and into which to build some of these these new capabilities. It's we think it's going to be a real differentiator.
The sales trainer, that is really interesting. Talk to me about how what is that, how you've implemented to the team, and just some of the reactions at first. Sales
Yeah.
team talking to AI, what is that like? And some of the learnings they had there. Why don't we start on that one? That one's an interesting one.
I've been through a few rounds of sales training
Yeah.
in my career, and each time it starts with the sales team um, being very sure that it's going to be a complete waste of their time, and then sort of reluctantly coming
Yeah.
around to
Every sales team, right?
yeah, yeah. And to be fair, they're making money when they're selling and not when they're sitting training. But
100%. Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, on the sales side, we did it in partnership with a training organization that's very popular in our industry called Butler Street,
Okay.
and what they helped us build is something you can think of as like an AI powered sales and account management coach, really.
Yeah.
Where the coach can do a couple of things for our client facing team. They enable us to practice real customer conversations, which is important in days where people are not answering the phone right. We're just not getting naturally
Interesting.
the reps in, the cycles in, so this, gives us a chance to build those reps up. And then it also speeds up things like campaign building for outbound business development.
Mm.
The same tool or cluster of tools does this, and it's built not in a generic way, but very specific for Procom. The AI is trained on our business context, so we fed it what essentially you can think of as knowledge blocks,
Yeah.
information on who is our ideal customer, and what industries do we serve, and what are their pain points, and how do we differentiate ourselves. And we also fed it on our messaging framework and our value propositions, et cetera, et cetera. So when the reps step into this simulation, it feels a lot like the real thing.
Mm.
And then the simulation is basically it's a voice conversation with an AI client. So it's kind of, it's like giving every rep a private coach who never gets tired, never gets too judgy. Although you can get the feedback, pretty instantly. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And are they getting scores as well with that, or it's feedback after sort of each exchange? How does that kind of work for the sales reps?
yeah, it's less a score and more feedback
Feedback.
after the exchange. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and
Um,
it'll push back on things like it acts like the customer. So it pushes not in a predictable way. We don't say, talk about price.
right.
It acts like the customer. So if it's bothered by how we're talking about price, it'll push back on price or on SLAs or on our approach to compliance or um, those kinds of things, which is pretty cool. And then so you asked about results. I'd say the training, it's something that's become continuous and now measurable, and
Yes.
so reps can log in anytime to sharpen skills, and we can track improvements in conversation quality. So early days, but we're seeing higher confidence and sort of actually tighter alignment between what marketing says externally and how sales shows up in the field. So that feels like a win too.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious, maybe the initial hesitation from sales, being like, "Wait, we're really gonna do this?" And when they go through the experience, what is kind of the first reactions you typically see when they start to interact? Is it like, "Holy crap! Like this actually is not bad," or
Yes. Yes, exactly. The skepticism drops away. And I think, it depends. It depends what you're comparing against. If you're comparing against not having to do it, then, this maybe feels like a pain. If you're comparing against having to do this, live with your manager and a bunch of listening colleagues, then talking to an AI, bot, provides a bit of relief for you to be able to muck around and get it wrong and,
right?
and practice in private. Yeah, but I think the impression in terms of how knowledgeable the AI client is and how good the speech is, or the simulation is, how convincing, that's been impressing people. And then
Yeah.
it does. So that's on the one side, and then the other side is you can say, hey, I've got a meeting. Oh my gosh, it's 5 minutes to. I got a meeting with Sally, who is the head of IT at drop that thing in, and because it knows all of us, it goes away and it does like a pre-call brief. It says, you may want to talk about this. They've got these kind of projects going on, et cetera, et cetera. These things got to be relevant. And so, they're just saving time. And what's really nice is, rather than, marketing or the CEO or someone saying, thou shalt, you get a sales rep saying to a colleague, wow, that thing was cool. I just did this thing and here's what I got, and it was fast and it saved me time. And so those are the kind of stories that I think spring it
Yeah.
up.
You hit on a couple good points there. The point though around the use case of prepping for a meeting and having like simulating that specific conversation is very interesting, right? Because then there's like the general training that you go through, but if you're able to take specific context, take somebody's LinkedIn profile, take somebody's, you know, content, put that into the model, and then be able to simulate pretending that you're talking to them. And I think that's a super powerful use case. And if I'm tracking it right, that's what you were saying, right?
You
It's
got
like
it.
scenario specific, context specific simulations. Very
Yep.
cool. So I want to come back to that one in a second, but the other one that you mentioned around exploring voice in a different use
Yeah.
case, being on the website. Talk to me about that. How did that come about? And what's the use case there? Because I think a lot of people will have interest in that too.
Yeah, so this is one I'm pretty excited about. We're experimenting with it on a staging server at the moment, but I expect
Okay.
it to go live in the next week or two.
Okay.
But as we are recording this, it's you can't find it on our website. So you will have noticed yourself how quickly AI voice interfaces are improving, and they're
Absolutely.
just yeah, and they're getting the technology behind them is getting cheaper. The voice is getting more natural. Frankly, the conversations are higher quality. The personality that's being embedded is quite the uncanny valley is sort of disappearing.
Yeah.
So we thought now was the time to try it ourselves and to see if we can give our website visitors a better experience is the use case here.
Yeah.
So when someone lands on our website, they might not know where to go. And I mentioned that we've got these two lines of business, the contract staffing and the workforce solutions. So that's already bringing two types of a buyer there. And then within the contract staffing business, we've got a two-sided market with the candidates on one side and the clients on the other. So we've
Yeah.
got multiple paths and multiple CTAs on the website, and that can cause
Yeah.
some uncertainty and some friction. So
Yeah.
what we're testing essentially is like a voice concierge, that can hold short but natural conversations, ask a few clarifying questions, and then guide someone to the right resource or the right Procomer. So,
Yeah.
the part that I'm most excited about is that they can even offer to um, like available meeting times to book directly into our calendars. So, kind of remove one back and forth
Mm.
step or one piece of friction for the clients. It'll say, you're available on Tuesday at 2 or how's Wednesday at 10 and just by voice that you get this a calendar meeting booked.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Very cool.
with like most things, the goal is not to replace people. It's to make the first interaction warmer and faster. That's instead of fill out the form.
Yeah.
And we think talking is just easier than typing.
I agree.
How one way that I think about it. I'm getting a bit philosophical on you here, but if the web used to be about clicks and then it was about tabs and swipes, I'm convinced that the next chapter is going to be about conversation. It's more natural and it's faster.
I agree. Well, first of all, I think that particularly for Procom, as you think about you're serving different segments, if you're having a candidate come to the website or somebody from IT or HR coming looking for a candidate, two very different experiences, maybe they're on the wrong page, to be able to at least have that voice agent to be able to get to it really quick versus I gotta, oh wait, gotta go back and then find my way through. Right.
Right.
I could see that being super, super useful. And then the other thing around voice, one of the tools that I'm really, very, very, bullish on is Whisper.
Oh,
So Whisper is
all day, every
fantastic
day. I'm
for,
talking to Whisper.
yeah. See, there you go. Right. It's just like so much easier, especially when you're prompting, especially when you're, I mean, you can even use it for vibe coding too, but
T- Totally.
you're,
So yeah,
we
for
can do it
your
way faster, right? If
way
we're talking
faster
to it. Yeah.
speed of thought. Yeah. So for your listeners, that's a Whisper Flow, WISPR
That's
Flow
right.
dot AI, and the other one that is worth trying. It's a Chrome extension called VoiceWave, and that
Voice
lets you
wave.
talk.
Okay.
VoiceWave, yeah, that'll let you talk, and it'll talk back to you. Whether it's
Yeah.
your ChatGPT. Now you can have a voice conversation with it, or whatever it lets you have a sort of talk
We
interface, which is a good one. And if you haven't checked it out, and for again, for listeners who might be excited by some of this voice stuff that you and I are geeking out on, there's a terrific conversation demo on a company called Bland.ai.
Oh yeah. Yeah, bland.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just the personality they bake into this I'm gonna say person, this AI that you think you're having a conversation with is remarkable.
Yeah, it's funny. And I always wondered where bland came from. I think it's because like the
Uh,
bland work, I think it was that they're
oh,
trying to
okay.
eliminate. I don't know. I think
Yeah, it
that was
seems
the
like
story.
a funny, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I feel like we need to compare our like yeah, our personal tech stack usage, and I'm sure we get some good finds. So I want to go back to a comment you made, which is being human. And I would imagine, I mean, Procom is in the business of people. It's about human relationships, both with the candidate but also the employer side, right? Um, in your quest to bring more AI into the operations, and like I said, already tens of thousands of tasks every month being supported by AI, how do you strike the balance to not lose the human touch in this? We want to automate everything, but we also need to stay human too. What's your thought on that?
It's a super important question. I think, for all of us to try and figure out
Yeah.
what's left for us to claim as uniquely human. And I talk to my kids about AI, and they they're super frightened about it. Quite frankly, I think
Yeah.
in part because they think it's going to take the jobs, it's going to do all the things,
Yeah.
and so for us, as a business, it's really all about people, as you say.
Yeah.
The goal is not to replace the human connection; it's to amplify it.
Yeah.
So I think about it like this. I told you I've got kids, and they're both working on the high school play right now. My daughter
Oh
is
yeah.
on stage, yeah, and she's doing the dance captaining kind of stuff. And my son,
It's awesome.
suiting his personality, is backstage with the crew. But
Yeah.
talking to them about their roles made me realize something that good. I think good AI is like the stage crew. It's the audience
Mm,
doesn't see them moving the props and this, and setting the scenes, but without them, the show doesn't shine. So, yeah, I think that's the same can be said for AI. It stays behind the curtain doing the heavy lifting so that we humans, the people, can focus on what only the people can do.
yeah.
Which for now, there is some things still in that category, building trust and solving problems and understanding nuance and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, in our world, in recruiting, that means that AI helps pre-screen resumes so that recruiters can spend more time with candidates. And in sales, AI surfaces the insights we were talking about before the client call, not instead of one. You bake transparency in as a concept when you're
Yes.
doing these things. So but it's important that our clients and our stakeholders know how we use AI.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you erode that trust, and you want to be building that human connection, not eroding it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, if it builds trust, then it's human, and if it saves time, then it's AI. Is kind of one heuristic
Yeah.
that you might think about.
So I guess in that analogy, then your son should be worried, but your daughter shouldn't be because she's
Yeah,
on the stage. No, I'm kidding. Um,
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna
I,
I'm gonna have to tell them to fast forward to that part. They get a bit of anxiety around this stuff.
yeah. I
I'd
mean,
say AI sets the stage and
yeah.
doesn't take the stage.
Yeah. It's funny because my daughter, I mean, our kids are similar age, and my daughter, who's in grade 9, she's always wanted to write a song. And
Yep.
so she, wrote her song, and she worked with Suno.ai to produce like the melody and the lyrics, and it was incredible. Like
Right.
when she played it, I was like, wow, uh, it
I should be
was
on the radio.
it's crazy. It's really crazy. And so, but that empowered a new type of creator because she never, would have done that. She didn't, maybe have the audio engineering and the studio but she's really great with words and lyrics and stuff like that. So I do think there's opportunity, but to your point, there's definitely going to be disruption as there already is. But
Well,
I
she's got the right attitude,
yeah,
embracing it, because that use case you just described is entirely new.
yeah,
And yeah, you don't know which part of the musicality you might fit into, or you might be able to contribute. Before that, she may be the world's greatest music producer. Absent this tool, she may have never produced any piece of music
ex-
in her life. So
exactly
those are
right. So it's
exciting
all
new
it's
ways to
all
express.
empowering new scenarios. I wanted to go back to a comment you just said around the AI pre-screening resumes, one of the things that I heard from a colleague was that, or somebody in the industry, that the amount of resumes that recruiters now have to go through has ballooned like 20, 30 times or something like that. Are you seeing that on your side of
Totally.
just, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
AI generated resumes being just inundated with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's the AI tools arms race. So we've got recruiters on one side, and you got the applicants on the other, who now have one click apply on LinkedIn and Indeed, and they've got all the tools to make their resumes perfectly well suited to the job description and highlight all the, and so on the other end you've got parsing that's happening to try and, and then you got wholly fraudulent folks who
Right.
are applying, and so you've got this real, you put a job out and you get 200 applications the next day, and now you've got a full-time job, you're trying to figure out how to go through. So that gives us a bit of job security over here at Procom, because no one
Yeah.
wants to
But
do that without the experience and the tool set to be able to do it.
total, I mean, but having AI to actually go through that and be able to sift through, I think is really key. So I think, yeah, it's a really interesting ton of volume, but then also using AI to sift through what seems real. Okay, so that, I mean, there's a ton here, a lot of use cases. What about a company that, didn't necessarily have the resources or the foresight to build a Guerrilla Works, right? Like
Yep.
internal innovation team, and they're like, hey, Dylan, I want to start, but you always got to start small with AI. I guess I mean, you're a little bit of a different scenario because you had an innovation team baked in. But that aside, how did you go about deciding what is a good use case to pilot? And even you talked about the sales training, you talked about the voice on the website, and there are other use cases as a partner for marketing. How did you evaluate that? How did you get there? What would be some good guidance there?
Yeah, I feel like start small is great advice, but what you just don't want is for that to be where a company gets stuck. And in this particular space, you could almost have paralysis from analyzing
Yeah,
what's happening.
too
When is
many
the right time to
options.
jump in? Because if I'm on chat GPT and then someone's building a wrapper around it, and you go, oh, there's a great tool over here, and then the next minute it's baked right into the large language model, and so
Yeah,
there's a video tool that's over here, oh, now it's baked in. So you've got, and from a tool set perspective, things are changing all the time.
yeah,
When we began, basically asking a question, where could AI make something faster, easier, more consistent, and basically without adding risk. And so
right.
we weren't chasing moonshots. So if that's the scenario you're
Okay.
painting here, we're really
Yep.
going after manual pain points that affected a lot of people and had measurable outcomes. I think you can basically put AI into two categories: opportunity AI and efficiency AI.
Mm.
And opportunity
Yep.
AI is where the big moonshots live, and there's a whole world of people and businesses that are going to do very well going after these. But for the rest of us, I think the faster, more productive way to adoption is through efficiency AI. And so my
Yeah.
my advice would be,
Interesting.
yeah, don't start big, start useful. and
Mm.
and, and so, like, Gorilla Resume and Gorilla Vision were born that way. They targeted repetitive, time heavy processes that didn't need human judgment every step of the way. And those early wins, built trust, um, because it's making people's lives here, easier. And then so from there, then we layered on some of the higher value or lower volume pilots that we talked about, some like the sales simulation, the marketing co-pilots. But even then, I'd say a checklist for finding good AI candidates.
Yeah.
Is the task high effort, low joy? Is it data
I
rich?
like that. Yep.
Low risk? Can you measure the impact?
Yep.
You know, and if it doesn't fit, then keep it human. And you know, we also, another trick we use internally here is that we created an AI champions group.
Okay.
These people surface ideas from across the company, and then they help share the best ones. And that's really a big part of, how the experimentation is turning into
Hmm.
culture here. It's good ideas that are being, shared and passed around. So I'd say, yeah, if you can find one thing that AI can make easier today, you'll get way more traction than you would from, on any CEO decreed new
Yeah.
company initiative.
I really liked your comment around it does, you know, does it's not really about starting big or starting small. It's actually start useful. I
Yeah.
really like that. And I think that the more specific and nichey the use case is, almost like I think that's the right stuff to solve because you know that this is a, meaningful problem. Like you said, it's high effort, low joy, requires data. Like your checklist that you had, you might find these very specific niche use cases that actually drive a ton of value for your business, right? So
Right.
I think that's a really good reminder instead of kind of following the crowd of like what are other people doing, look at your business and look at some of these like very specific use cases and attach to your point like what's the baseline, how much does it cost, attach a dollar value to it, right? That way you know if it's worth solving or not.
Even even on a
Yeah.
personal, so that's looking sort of at your business unit or your business
Yeah.
entirely, even on your own, in your own personal world, right? The moment you go, that again, I got to reply to that email or what, I instantly now go to, yeah, there's a GPT for that. So I'm going to back myself away. I'm going to write the recipe and the instruction so that the next time the thing comes in, I drop it into tool and, output comes
Yep.
out. So, that same, like, I am looking for things that are high volume. That's not where I get my joy. The business doesn't, drive value in these areas, and those are places that to be thinking about what you can automate and what you can put AI on.
No, I love that. Can you tell me a little bit more on the AI champions group, just in terms of like, rough size or like levels in the company, like sort of how junior, senior, just because I think people are trying to do. I think everybody has been told you need an AI council of some sort. You need
Yeah,
an advocacy group. What does good look like? Like what have you learned building that?
yeah, it's a great question, and you can imagine, we had the same conversations that probably other business leaders are having, where you go, you
Yeah.
staff it too senior, and that quashes any kind of actual
Yeah.
real bottom up grassroots virality in this thing,
Yeah.
and go the other way, and it doesn't have enough heft or attention or interest. So we
Yeah.
tried to handpick people from across the business. So we've got a sales function that's pretty distinct. We've got a recruitment function that's pretty. So we want people who are experienced and respected in those functions more than
Yeah.
titled, if you
I
know what I
see.
mean. So
Yep.
the ones who actually are closer to the work, who know themselves what the pain feels like that they're trying to solve, and when they say, oh, we got a solution here, it carries cultural weight.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. So that you got to pick the right folks who have the right level of influence, but then you also need to kind of diversify levels. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Um,
and make it broad, because it's gonna this is not a technology that sits in one area. There just isn't an area where you couldn't get some benefit from turning these tools to it.
yeah. So making sure it's cross functional. Um, the so Dylan, obviously you are like an AI advocate and, on the frontier where it's like, hey, as soon as something comes up, you're building a custom agent to be able to solve that. Obviously, not everybody is in that bucket, right? How have you when you're implementing these new solutions, how do you help teams embrace AI who might not be on that, let's call it the innovator bucket, but maybe more on like, the mass or maybe a little
Yeah.
bit late? I mean, there's fears, there's concerns. I know some people that are like, if it's AI, I want nothing to do with it. What do you what have
Yeah.
you learned on that and any tips on dealing with
Yeah.
those kind
So,
of
so
scenarios?
you're generous in asking me, because I just admitted that I can't even get my kids to talk about it. But um, as so often is the case, I think technology isn't the hard part. The change is.
Yeah, I agree.
We had bring your grade 9 to a workday yesterday, and I
I just
sort of
had that
started
too.
some of my conversations with them, around AI, and it was basically, no, we don't touch that stuff. Or the teacher tells us not to touch that, and we're not allowed to touch that. Oh
Interesting.
boy!
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got some shifting we need to do. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I'd say, um, if AI is going to stick, then I think it just can't feel like the next thing that the top says thou shalt, and
Yeah.
so I think we have to feel like it's something that we can do for ourselves, not that it's something that's being done to us. And
Yeah.
so, um, it's this idea that you can't compel curiosity; you have to spark it.
Mhm.
And these tools, for me, they're really all about curiosity. That's how you're gonna drive adoption, by playing with these things. So we kind of focused on three things, I'd say: access,
Okay.
education, and proof. And
Okay.
so, yeah, the first thing you gotta do is make sure that there's a way that people can access these tools, right? In
Yeah.
some way that's safe. So we made it easy and safe to do that in our business through what I was talking about, through the Gorilla Works, right? We offered tools like the Gorilla Resume and Gorilla GPT, which is a place to do this. And then we told the stories, right? The real ones, a recruiter who saves an hour per candidate package, or the sales rep who's practicing objections before a big client meeting. And we know that these stories travel faster than the corporate memos.
Yeah.
So I'd say find these stories. These are small things that people can do and share. And then it was important to set the tone. So this sort of the educate piece here, that it's not is not a replacement. It's a co-pilot, right? So let's
Yeah.
help take that piece off the table. If that's the part that people are worried about, geez, if I show them that I'm using this thing, then they'll think I don't
Yeah.
really mean just the thing.
Yeah.
you know. And then, really, once people started using it, the skepticism turns into curiosity, and then when people got curious, then the adoption stopped being a program, from higher
Hmm.
up, and it started being just what we do. So yeah, I'd say the fear is real,
Yeah.
but the fear fades fast when people see what's possible.
I love the point you had on telling stories and the power of storytelling because I think that that's what people hear, that's what people remember, right? And that's how you get to the 500% gains or the 10x gains is you story tell those early wins. And as marketers, I mean, again, a lot of people listening to this are
It's the business
marketers.
we're in.
That's the business we're in. And we do storytelling externally, right? But what are we doing to storytell internally? Because internal change management is internal marketing, it's internal storytelling. So it's almost using those skills for turning them inward. Because you're right. I also wrote down here you have to choose change. You can't. You don't change because somebody tells you to change. You change because you choose it. And so that's one of the ways to do that by sparking the curiosity through these stories and triggering the play. I really I think there's something very
Play is the
human
right
about
word.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really like that. On the counterbalance to this, as is you got to get people curious and play, etc. The business, every organization I feel like is cracking down on ROI, and it's not just because it's all AI, we're going to fund it. It's like, oh, it's another AI thing. Let's really look at this, and almost even more skepticism maybe. It's hard though when, as we said, change takes time. There's a lot of human factors at these AI transformations. Some of the wins that you get are not so easily quantifiable in the short
Right.
term. How does a marketer say we need this tool, and when they get stuck with this, well, what's the ROI of it? And they feel like they're coming up short. Like, why is that? What can we do as marketers to better justify or build our case and showcase that what we're doing is adding value.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the measuring the ROI for AI is tricky for the reason you just described. It
Yeah.
doesn't always show up as dollars saved or hours
Yeah.
saved. Um, so what I look at really is two things: efficiency and adoption.
Right. Okay.
So adoption is an interesting one. The analogy for me, I would just last week I went to university called Wilfrid Laurier. I was at a
Yeah.
Laurier alumni event, and I asked the dean there, who we were having dinner with, us, said, "How do you think about the measuring the reputation of the school?"
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he said, "Well, of course, there's the rankings that everyone looks at. So that might be like the ROI here in this case, the dollars and the hours." He says, "But he has reasons for why those are less important to him." He says the number of people who are applying to the program is
Mm.
going up,
Mhm.
and the number and speed at which they are employed when they graduate. So, and I said, "Geez, well, that sounds like quality, measure more than a reputation measure." And he says, on the contrary, he says, like, if the school didn't have a good reputation, people aren't coming in, and if it didn't have a good reputation, their grads aren't being hired. So there's something about the adoption,
Mhm.
analogy,
Mhm.
here that I would draw. But you could ask, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah.
One, two, and what does better look like? And then if you can define those two things, then you've got a basis to measure it. And so, like for us with Gorilla Vision, the ROI was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Much faster turnaround and way fewer manual steps.
Right.
For others, like the sales simulation, success looks more like confidence and quality of conversations, right? And so, that gets a
Yeah.
little bit woolier. And then those are the efficiency measures, and then the adoption, is just as important, right? If people are using the tool regularly, not because they're told they have to, but because it helps them, then
Yeah.
that's a real signal. And another, metric, one that I like a lot, I'm calling it a metric, is, learning velocity. How
Mhm.
fast can we test, prove, and scale what works? And then here, what seems to be working, is that we build the confidence first, and then we see the numbers follow.
Yeah. So I guess it's really, how do you measure the metrics that matter and some of the early indicators that might drive some of the bigger gains, is interesting. And I think the other thing that you were nodding to is like knowing your baseline. Like that, how do you do it today without AI? And there's a cost to that. And what are the inputs? And who does what? And how much time? And how much? So there's some economics, there's some calculus that you can do on that. That maybe we might be skipping in some
Yeah.
cases. Like when we're just like, hey, let's get this tool in. It's easy to skip that part, but I guess it means that it's just going to be harder for us to rationalize or prove ROI, right? Or measure the ROI. Um, but yeah, no, it's always, I think that, yeah, it's gonna be a tricky one. Dylan, I'll ask you, is there a use case, whether one that you've already talked about or a different one, that you've seen that AI didn't really work as you intended? What did you learn from that, and what comes to mind on that? Like not an AI failure, because everything iterates and you iterate your way to success, but like what hasn't worked?
Yeah, it's once you put that iteration caveat in there, almost all the examples come off the table. But I'd
Right.
say, like, our first experiments with AI generated marketing content were kind of the classic
Okay.
case of fast but flat.
Right. Right. Right.
So AI was getting the words right, but not the why. And so, the writing was technically fine, but it missed, some of the trickier things, the things like our voice and our relationships with, and the market nuance, and things.
Yeah.
Um, and that confirmed for us that AI isn't a replacement writer, nor a replacement strategist, for that matter. But it is an amazing thought partner and
Yes.
starting point. And now in marketing, we use it to speed up the messy middle, the
Mm,
research, the structure, the early drafts. While we hold on to the story and the human judgment parts.
yeah.
Um, so that, the experience became a bit of a filter, for new ideas for us. So now we're looking at, does it benefit from scale,
Right.
or,
Okay.
does it depend on judgment? And if it's scale, then automate. If it's judgment, then keep it human.
Yes.
Um, but like you said, the miss turns into a win, because it helps you learn, and in our case helps clarify what practical AI really means, for us, faster where it helps, human where it matters.
Yeah.
But then there's the second learning that here, that I think is, what you were kind of touching on, that you got to keep coming back to the stuff, because that same early writing, that we did, that
Mm.
wasn't quite right. The tools have improved, and so has, our ability to feed the context, or generate a better prompt, and there's just more and more that it probably can do. So, so when you say, find the area where you point AI at it, and it's not, it's not going to do great. I might point to, plumbing or something, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just so much else is
Yeah.
quickly helped by what AI can bring.
Yeah, yeah, you don't want to bet against an exponential, right? It's gonna be
Yeah, right.
it's gonna change, weekly, monthly. Dylan, last question I'll throw at you is we talked about ROI being a common challenge that I hear a lot of, like, how do we prove the ROI on this? The other side of this is, how do you scale AI, and how do you operationalize it so
Yeah,
that you go from, like, the single player mode of, like, one person and one AI to the multiplayer mode where AI is empowering teams and divisions, and again, an organization like Procom that um, is automating, or AI is generating, tens of thousands of tasks every month. You obviously have figured it out. So, what do companies need to do differently to successfully scale and operationalize? Because I will say a lot of companies are pretty frustrated. They're on this proof of concept
mm,
hamster wheel, and it's like, I'm getting tired and I can't get off this damn thing. How do you scale? How do you
yeah,
operationalize it? Do you have any tips on that?
yeah. So a couple things. First of all, I would push back slightly on one of
Yeah.
your premises, that we've got
Yeah.
it figured out. We've got some of it figured out, but I'd say, it's none of us do. We're doing great, and there's just more ahead than
There's
there is
more. Yeah.
behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
But I think, it's helpful to remember that, despite the many claims to the contrary, no one is an expert in AI yet.
Yeah.
We're all figuring it out in real time, and there's new models and new tools and new capabilities that are being launched every day, right?
Yeah.
So the people who get the most value out of AI aren't the ones who read the most articles about it.
Mm.
The real AI leaders, they're the ones listening to the Chat B2B podcast, of course. Um, no, the
Yeah.
real ones
Yeah.
are the ones who play with it the most, frankly.
Yeah.
Um, I'd say that the one unique characteristic about this particular technology is that, AI rewards curiosity. If
Well
if
said.
I was giving advice to other leaders, I'd say make it safe for your teams to play. Give them the time, give them the space, importantly, give them the permission to experiment. And that's how the learning happens, right? And then when they discover something that works, anything, then help them share it. Find ways to
Yeah.
spread it, and amplify it, and give them platforms to do that part. Because the success stories really, spread, and they accelerate the usage of AI in my experience. And I was gonna offer, one little sort of practical, you're
Yeah.
saying,
Please.
what can people do? If you got patience for it, if your listeners are anything like me, I'd love to have something I could go away and do right away. I'd say, there's a little hack here, that, when you're using GPT or whatever LLM, your
Yeah.
is your preference, tell it what you're trying to do. As a tip,
Yep.
tell it what you're trying to do, uh, and ask it to be the subject matter expert. I think everyone is doing that roughly
Hmm.
now. And here's the first part of the trick: and be the subject matter expert, and a prompt engineer, a
Mm.
context engineer, and then ask it to write the best possible prompt for your goal. So you're not writing the prompt; you're saying, "Hey, you're both an expert in the thing, and a prompt, wizard. You write the
Give me the
prompt."
prompt. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part one. Part two of the trick is Now take what it gives you and drop that into, there's a website called metaprompts.com.
Okay.
And so you drop your best version of the prompt into metaprompt.com, and that'll sharpen it up even more. The Dharmesh, I think his name is Dharmesh, the guy who
HubSpot.
founded HubSpot.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is one of his toys. He creates a few of these things, and it's genius, because then what you do, you take the output from that, which is the improved prompt, and if you want to confirm for yourself that it is actually better, drop it back into your LM and say, hey, look, you gave me this. Here's another one. Which one's better and why? And now you're learning. Now you're going, oh, geez, it did these 4 other things. It provided constraints.
Yeah.
And you go, okay. So now not only do you have the better prompt, you have some understanding of why it's a better prompt. And so you're just, your learning cycles are speeding. But I would say, if there was one sort of practical tip to take away, go visit metaprompt.com, and almost any of the things you're doing on on the chat tool is going to get better. So anyway,
Love it.
Andrew, I'd say that as a bottom line, my bottom line would be, stay curious, because playing with this stuff, is what's going to turn it practical. In my view, practical AI is just curiosity with a job title.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. And it's funny bringing this full circle down to sort of, we started talking about practical and ending on practical. I think we also need to be practical when we take this to the org and try and scale these out. We have a successful use case and we feel very excited and very passionate about it. Understand that this new use case, scaling this out, is you're changing SOPs, you're changing processes, you're changing maybe some automations that are already built. So expect pushback and expect friction, and it's going to take a series of no's internally from compliance or privacy
Right.
or legal, or
Right.
expect it. Nobody goes through that process and is like, oh, it's all smooth sailing. So I think it's really a test of grit and resilience, and we're working through this with several of our clients, right? Of help us reimagine how we do go to market. And even though everyone's read the same pursuits and the memos and the corporate visions, etc., everyone has a job to do. And if you're on legal, or if you're on compliance, and you're on privacy, they're doing their job by asking tough questions. So I think it's
Yeah.
uh,
And
it
that
sounds like there's
balance
no easy. Yeah. Yeah.
is tough, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to, work with leadership to draft we need a policy on this. Our clients want us to have a policy on this. It makes perfect sense to have a policy on
Yeah.
AI usage. But it reads like what you can't, don't, can't, and you gotta get it right. And you think, oh, does it make sense to say, not these AI tools? And you go, well,
Right.
hold on a minute.
Yeah.
That list of tools is out of date tomorrow. Not only that, all the tools we're currently using that haven't already embedded AI will
That's right.
next week. And so they're okay. So if it's not tool based, then is it just an education around what to put in and what not to, PII and confidential, all that kind of stuff. And it's a real wrestling match, because you've got all the promise in the world over here of doing the stuff, and then but be super careful, because these things suck up vast quantities of confidential information. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's not an easy balance.
Yeah, it's not an easy balance, but we're like you said, we're
But
probably in that messy, play, but we're in that messy middle of figuring this all out. Dylan, just want to say thank you for joining us. Love the insights, love the practical takes, and would love to have you back on, and just to hear more about what Procom's doing, and what else is coming out of Guerrilla Works these days to disrupt the industry. So
it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on. I'd say I could talk AI endlessly, and if it wasn't AI, I could talk to you endlessly. So both of those things together made for a fun time. So thanks,
awesome.
Andrew.
Appreciate it, Dylan. Alrighty, thank you.